Sheldon, what progress have you seen with Rasmus when it comes to his physical play, and what sort of element does that add to what he brings to the table when he's able to have a night like he did in Vegas where he lands 10 hits?
I think Ras has always had that as part of his game. I mean, we can think back to, last season, there's, some very physical games for him. I think back to his time stepping in as an 18-year-old with the Marlies, very physical. I think that's, maybe an underrated part of his game that's always been there. He had the one big hit in Vegas there. Otherwise, I think in general, the hits are probably quite inflated. That's what you get from one building to the next. In some buildings, you brush up against a guy and you get a hit, and some you gotta knock them over to get a hit. But regardless, Ras is a physical and competitive guy. That's part of his game as well. And that's what, if you're going to be a little undersized, you need to be very physical, very competitive, and fearless if you're going to succeed in the league. And he has that. That's what gives him a chance to play as a young guy.
What do you see as the biggest challenge presented by the Blues, and what's your kind of sense of the group at the end of a long road trip, the energy levels and all that?
I think our group feels good. I mean, the day off in Arizona, I think went a long way. We had a really good practice yesterday. Guys are motivated to finish the road trip off appropriately here. In terms of St. Louis, it's another elite team here. We're playing, and another team, a lot of speed, a lot of skill off the rush. Their young players have really kind of taken a hold of the offense and the team, and they're getting a lot from others, I think, as a result. Playing a little bit differently than what you've seen from St. Louis teams here in recent years. But they're rolling. I mean, very good on both power play and penalty kill. Good goaltending. It's a very good, complete team. Obviously, they've got some COVID stuff happening here, like we do, and like most teams in the league. But regardless, they've been as good as anybody in the league, really all season, but certainly in the last month or so.
Next, go to Chris Cuthbert with Sportsnet. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Sheldon, I was just I heard Mitch talk about being a threat to score, and was thinking about his work on the power play. We know he's an elite playmaker. Do you think at times of late, maybe playmaking, threat to score, it's been a tough sweet spot for him to find between the two?
Yes and no, I guess. I mean, he's always going to be a guy that's going to facilitate and look to get the puck in other people's hands. It's a huge part of who he is as a player, and a number of players that he plays with benefit from that. Same time, I look at it, I think he's been all over the net. I think he hit a couple posts in the last game he played for us, both on the power play too. And, I think it's something that, we'd like him to find ways to be more of a threat and score on the power play. But reality is our power play was really rolling for a period of time there, as good as anybody in the league, when Mitch was in, and then Mitch went out, and the power play continued to roll and build momentum there before Christmas, and it hasn't been as good since. Some of that, I think, is because we haven't played a lot of hockey and gotten the reps. Part of it, I do think, is just we're out of sync a little more here now without having Mitch for 3 out of the 5 games that we've come back since Christmas. So I'm not overly concerned with who's scoring the goals and what that looks like on our power play. I'm just concerned about whether or not it goes in the net, and has gone in the net for us quite a bit this season, and we're hoping for that to continue, obviously.
Next, we'll go to Terry Cochane with the Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Terry.
Hey, Sheldon, just going off what Chris is asking, and not to belabor it, sorry, but this oddity, though, that, Mitch hasn't scored on the power play in 100 games. I mean, it's given the talent that he has. I mean, it's, you'd think one would drop for him somewhere in there, but it just hasn't. I'm not suggesting that it'd be a worry to you overly, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, I find it odd, but we're aware of it. And like I said, we're trying to do different things to help get something to fall for him. But again, It's more of an issue when I look at, last season, our power play was really struggling. Those things were highlighted then. In fact, it wasn't even so much brought up as much. This season, our power play has been as good as anybody in the league for the most part. So I'm not too concerned about it, but we're always trying to find ways to get better. So continue to monitor it and look at it.
The other thing I want to ask you about was Pietrangelo was just saying that the biggest stride he thinks he's taken in his game this year is his work on the forecheck. What are you seeing in him in that regard? And if you agree with that, where do you think that comes from?
I think where it comes from is just his speed and his size, his ability to close on people, and I think it's been more of a focus for us as a team this season, and I think he's done a good job of that. I think it is a real strength of his game. It's not one that he necessarily comes to him naturally. I think he's more of a guy who wants the puck. He's going to carry it in. He's going to threaten that way, and I do think that's really when he's truly at his best, is when he's bringing the puck up to the neutral zone and getting you onto offense. But the reality of the league is it's going to force you to have to go forecheck the puck back if you want to, spend time in the offensive zone and play on offense. And he's, I think, learning that, and our team is learning a lot of that. Our forecheck has really been a good asset for us when we've been at our best. And Pierre's, with his size and speed, it's a natural fit that when it's time to go retrieve a puck, he should be as good as anybody in the league in terms of getting on it first.
Go to Kevin McGran with Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Sheldon, when it comes to the big hit like we saw Rasmus do the other night, there really aren't a lot of big hits in the NHL sort of across the league anymore, right? You just don't see defensemen laying out attackers like that. Is that part of just the way the game is played now? Just there's so much speed, you can't really risk taking yourself out of a play, but with a hit, or is it more exhausting on a player that delivers the hit? Like, what's your take on why we don't see that quite as much as we used to?
I think it's a product of the speed. It's a product of how people defend a lot more these days. It's a lot more about angles and taking away space versus that big step up in the physicality. And then also it's just the way that the players coming into the league. There's not a lot of guys that's what they do. The younger generation of defensemen, the way they're being developed are built differently in a lot of ways, and in terms of their body. And then they're from a young age, they're taught more to play with the puck and defend with angles and defend skating forward and all of those things. So I think it's just you're seeing a lot of the evolution of the game, and I think you'll probably see even more of that trend continue.
All right, thanks very much.
Last one here. We'll go to Luke Fox with Sportsnet. Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, Sheldon. Just curious about the plan to go back to Toronto after this game, even though the next game is in New York. Was there any debate about just going directly to New York, or why was it important, do you think, to go home for a couple of days?
There was no debate on this one. I think just given that it's been so long of a trip, and we do have ample time to get back home and spend time in our own houses and sleep in your own bed and reconnect with your families, all those kind of things, and get some practice time at home. So I think this one was pretty much a no-brainer. We had even thought about between the two games coming up with the Rangers and Islanders, we had discussed even that one about coming back home as well, but in that case decided to just to stay on the road there. But for this one here, getting back home, we just thought was really a no-brainer.